Hi, welcome back to another AOGP podcast, Scientology Outside of the Church. I'm Jonathan Burke, and I'm here with Jason Robba. Jason, how are you this morning?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to doing another podcast here. I think this is a interesting topic that many people will find interest in as well.
Yeah, I get asked these questions by people an awful lot. So we're going to do this podcast on what happened to the corporate Church of Scientology and why did one of the world's fastest growing religions turn into one of the world's fastest dwindling religions. This will be a very interesting topic, and I hope that this will attract some attention to those in the church, because there are a lot of really great, nice, able people in the church who are being kept under the thumb of some pretty serious suppression, and they can see the cracks in the foundation and they're just not quite sure what to do about it. So here we go. We'll shoot this tennis ball across the tennis court back and forth and everything. And don't let me steal the mic too much.
All right.
Yeah. Because this is a long and sordid tale. So as with any religion, there have been offshoots, and there have been people that said, by God, I can do it better, I can build it better, so on and so forth. History is littered with these people who have a better way to build the wheel. And this sort of thing was happening to the church before it was a church, way before it was a church, back with the original Dianetics in Wichita, and some say even earlier than that. As far as, well, we mentioned it, I think it was in the last podcast, wasn't it? That we talked about.
I think it was in the
Dianetics was taken away, the rights to it was taken away by the first board in Wichita. Very, very early on in 1951.
Right. Now,
LRH learned his lesson about that.
Yeah. Not to
I'm trying.
Question on a podcast.
Right. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what his name was. It escapes me. But Jack something. No? Don?
No.
Don Purcell?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been who it was. Well, anyway, so it was a group of people, and the one guy got it back. He got the Dianetics, right to Dianetics and everything, and Hubbard had to start over again and started doing Scientology. And then lo and behold, the guy gave him back the rights to Dianetics free of charge for whatever reason. So obviously Hubbard was doing something right, as we lovingly call him, LRH.
Yeah.
So this sort of thing happened again right under LRH's nose. Let's fast forward to some would argue when this happened, but I think that there were an awful lot of people for a very long time that wanted to steal the show, right? Because they didn't have the internet back then. And I was just working on some of the St. Hill Special Briefing Course lectures for our AI Oracle project today, and I was reading one of the lectures where he was talking about Ron was saying that he didn't know it, and he was wondering why stats were going down, but some of the organizations had, and this is interesting given what's happened with the church now.
Mm-hmm.
He had to find out what these false reports were and why the stats were dropping. And this is before he'd even gotten really big on statistics. This is 1965. And he found out that these organizations had talked to each other, and they had all agreed to raise the prices by as much as 1,000%.
Yeah.
And he didn't know it, and he didn't authorize it. Here he is in Britain, and he's trying to find out via telex what's going on. I mean, it would have been very difficult, and it's hard for a lot of our listeners to imagine, before there were smartphones, before there was internet, you had a telephone, you had telex. This is before fax machines. If anybody knows what a fax machine is or anything like that, that was basically what a telex was. And this was done by wire. And so you could get a digital communication across the Atlantic or anywhere that had the facility to, and there was a wire connected to it. This wasn't done by satellite. And you would have to find out via telex whether the person was telling you the honest to God truth of what was happening, what wasn't, unless you wanted to fly there. And flying there took a lot longer then than it does now.
Yep.
So these types of things with changes to the tech kept happening, with policy kept happening. And it was one of those things where the cat's way, the mice will play. Well, same thing happened again. Let's say let's start probably around 1978, 1979. Hubbard died in January, I think January 16th of 1986. Right.
Well,
so long and the short of it is that what was going on with the whole thing is he had been isolated from about 1968 forward and was kicked out of England.
right.
Bought an old cattle ship and turned it into a floating organization, basically.
That was the Apollo.
And yeah, that was the Apollo.
Yeah.
And they were denied entry into ports and caused all kinds of trouble and everything like that. I mean, and then they had a good rapport with the places that they could get into and everything. But the powers that be, once Hubbard had started developing some of the upper level materials in 67 and 68, they really put the heat on it, both about the e-meter with the Food and Drug Administration of the United States, denying him residency in England. He had a home that he had just bought 7-8 years earlier. He had to leave and be put on this boat in the middle of the ocean. I mean, we're talking some serious pressure on this guy. And this was one of his most prolific periods in what he was doing. I mean, he didn't let it get him down or anything like that.
Right.
And then he also formed the Sea Organization at the same time, obviously, for, obvious reasons. But once they started to isolate him and make things difficult for him, this is when they started having a heyday in these organizations, because there weren't what you would call, there were some very able people, but not Hubbard's level of ability. Right. And it was difficult for him to be in every place at once. So, this sort of thing happens again and again and again and again. And this is, some of these problems with people changing things. I mean, you look at the bulletins in the 1975 issue of the technical volumes, have all these board technical bulletins in them. When I got trained at Flag in 88, we were still using those. Mm-hmm. And then they all got canceled by Hubbard. And that was a huge project. Yeah. Because all of these changes. So, the underlying theme on this, and I have a point to all of this. The underlying theme to all of this comes back down to what Hubbard was talking about on the objectives lectures on the briefing course, whereas people constantly want to put a change, either because they want to be creative or they think they have a better idea, or, more nefarious purposes. They want to suppress the tech.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happened to the church. So this is sort of the backstory on this whole thing. Is it just, it's one of those, God damn it, it's happening again type things. That's why he wrote Keeping Scientology Working in 1965. This is why he was saying this stuff, is because people wanted to change things. And the more you enter in change, the less powerful the tech is. But it's a testament to the tech itself that even if you change it some, it still gets results, more results, better results than you get in most anything else. I mean, that's really something.
Right. And that's probably right there, right? Results that it gets.
Yeah, yeah, because of the results. This stuff really does work. And ultimately, if I was going to say, what the overlying arc of this podcast is, this tech works. Now, why would that be the overlying arc? Well, it's simple. If you had a technology that was capable of making people more able and free thinkers, and that they could perceive what's going on, and that they could actually do something about it, have the horsepower under the hood to take the bull by the horns and get something done, how would the powers that be feel about that?
Right. Yeah. And as we talked about in the podcast where we were talking about the in-between lives area and any off-planet operations that might still be extant here on this planet, it's obvious that, this place is a prison. This planet is a prison, and it's being run by the prison guards at this moment in time, and they don't want someone like Ron Hubbard coming along and developing something that opens up the prison gates, lets people out, lets people have their own free will and self-determinism. And it just seems like anybody that's come along over the time track, over the whole track, that does something like this either gets killed off and or their technology becomes altered and suppressed. There's stories of people, one of my PCs was talking about, I think he posted in the College of Independent Scientology about how this happened with Christianity as well. It's probably happened with any other spiritual movement out there. I think Hubbard even talks about this in one of the lectures, that it all eventually becomes altered and turned into a control mechanism. And it seems like it has occurred with the Miscavige era Church of Scientology, that the tech itself has been turned into something that's workable for freeing people up and turning it into a control mechanism to keep people under control and, financially in a constant state of financial stress with the amount of money that they're charging for people. They can't go anywhere because this is the church kind of has them under control.
Right. Well, it's the expression that I like to use is it works as a great flypaper.
Yeah.
For people who start to reach for something, and they are in good enough shape that they go, you know what, there's something to this. I'm going to check this out. That makes for a great, and this is what we call a theta trap, is where you're trying to trap somebody who is a being. And how do you trap a being? Well, you get them curious about something. It's like putting a chunk of meat in one of these traps to catch an animal's leg, that sort of thing, or catch them by the head. I mean, that's probably the worst analogy, but it's really true, because what's happened over the last, well, more than 40 years with the church. I mean, these alterations have been occurring way before 1980, which is the cutoff that a lot of the free zoners like to use, is 1980, 82. I mean, the LH, that's, like I said, in 1965, he wrote Keeping Scientology Working, because he was like, God damn it, they keep changing these things. I didn't write this. That's how New Era Dianetics got produced, is he didn't know that wasn't in there, and that somebody had put that in there. And he said, I didn't write that. And so he went through the whole thing and said, okay, we're doing an entire revamp, and I've got some better ideas as we go along with this. And, when Hubbard put his mind to something, God damn it, the guy got it done. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He's one of the most prolific authors on the planet ever. And that's the thing, is that when you're dealing with a personality like that, who he just roll his sleeves up and just had the confront of 100 men,
right,
and get something done. He is a really, really strong opponent for people who want to lie and control and cheat and steal and suppress. And these changes, when they started occurring in 78, 79, and Hubbard was painted into a corner when they were trying to get him on tax charges, because they couldn't get him on anything else. Because, that's always the go-to is tax or sex charges. They can they can dream something up on that. Oh, we'll just get him on tax charge. So, he was in the country without permission. They had denied him re-entry into the United States, even though he was born in Tilden, Nebraska. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened is the church was taken out. And if you get the guy that designed the whole thing off the lines, eventually he's passed away, and they had him painted into a corner to where he was trusting two people that he thought he could trust and shouldn't have been trusted. And then you have a personality like David Miscaviage. Nothing good is going to come of this type of a thing. And this has been a slow change to where let's put it this way. One of the most interesting statistics that I've ever heard is that a new person in Scientology, less than 10% of the people that get in Scientology, and this is back in the late 80s, less than 10% of the people that got into Scientology from that point forward stayed in Scientology for more than 2 years. Because of the changes.
Right.
Before that, and when you look at the biggest, and I'm going to use the word reformation because that's sort of what it was when Standard Dianetics came out. When Standard Dianetics came out, you had this huge boom of people that were more clears made in that period of time than any other time. It was the 1970s was sort of a reformation of the church, and Hubbard started to realize what he wanted to do. He'd found the secret sauce, the book Standard Dianetics. And this book gave people the power to make it clear with a meter much faster than original Dianetics, which the e-meter didn't even exist in 1950. Those people, they're kind of the old guard, the ones that are still around then. Most of the people from the 50s and 60s, save a handful of people, have all moved on, died, or as we lovingly say, dropped the body. So one of the things that Miscavige does is he counts on this. Because if you've got something and a certain number of these people are in amongst it and about it, and then you go and change it again, well, you've had a whole wash through of these people, and very, very few of those people are still around. Nobody's going to notice.
Right.
Nobody's going to notice.
Right.
And one of the things it's one of the things that we protest the most is the technological changes. And that's where they change the books roughly about every 20 years when the copyrights go up. And so they have to get them recopyrighted, and they change the books. Now, this has happened about 4 to 5 times since the 70s. Because the Golden Goose, LRH, Hubbard, the Golden Goose isn't making any more books. He isn't writing any more technology. The Golden Goose is gone. So all Miscavige has is all of his prior works, and he has to keep those copyrights on them. So he'll go and make changes and then get it recopyrighted. But this is a falsehood, because you can only copyright the changes by law. And somehow they're letting him copyright the whole changed work.
Right.
So it isn't the same thing. And as big as we are on misunderstood words and all of that stuff, and as big as LRH was on technical degrades, you don't change his work. It works the way it was. Leave it alone. And this is how they've taken the whole thing out. And once you change the works, whether it's auditing tech, which is the biggest problem, or it's something else, now it means something else. So when you have a sentence that's written by Hubbard that says, "See Jane run through the yard quickly," and then Miscavige comes in and changes it to, "See Jane run through the yard quickly, turn her head, and call her dog Spot."
Right. And call her dog.
Yeah. Right. And call her dog Spot. See Jane turn her head and call her dog Spot is the only copyrightable part of that, but they're getting it copyrighted. And the other way they do this is they get around it. If you look at the covers of the books, typically when you get a book, it says by Noam Chomsky, by author's name. And then what they'll do is they'll take the by off.
Yep, and just put the name in all.
Right. And make it all caps. So now you're dealing with a corporate entity. I don't know how many people know about that, but when a name is all in capital letters, that demarks that it is a corporate entity. It is not the real person, because your name is not spelled in all capital letters. So when you get a letter from the IRS sends you a letter, your name is in all capital letters. That's the corporate entity known as Noam Chomsky, not Noam Chomsky, right? So these guys are in on this, and part of that, this is an interesting thing, is the board of directors of Scientology. I don't know if you know this. The board of directors of Scientology, not one of those board of directors of the corporate Church of Scientology is a Scientologist.
Really?
They're all attorneys.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And when this whole thing happened, this was back in the 90s when they said, we defeated the IRS. No. They were taken over by the IRS. Mm-hmm. And one of the former heads of the IRS became the lead guy in the church. Mm-hmm. So, people can say, well, Miscavige this and Miscavige that. You could ask Miscavige, you could send him a letter, and if you do this, you'll be kicked out of the church. You can ask him, I want to see in writing, because Hubbard was very keen on, if it isn't written, it isn't true. I want to see in writing where Hubbard said you got to take over, because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay. So you're dealing with a bunch of smoke and mirrors on this whole thing on multiple levels. And what it comes down to is greed and trying to destroy something that would create freed beings on a prison planet. That's the overarching thing, is that Scientology works and they wanted it stopped. And Miscavige was the poster child for the guy that gets to do the whole thing, and he gets the spoils from screwing the whole thing up for everybody else. This bullshit about, chairman of the board. I had Marty Rathbun, who used to be the ethics inspector general, which is laughable, for the Church of Scientology. Marty told me this, and he was very serious about this, and I do believe that he said this. He told me, this is before he was bought, sold, and paid for to go work for the church again a few years ago. Right. He told me, he said, do you know who Miscavige idealizes? I said, no. Who? He said, take a guess. I really have no idea. Don Corleone. Right. A fictional mafia boss.
Yep.
And that really rings true to me, because he wants to aspire to a fictional character. That's like saying, I really want to be like Captain Ahab.
Yeah, there's something there when a man tries to act like a fictional tough guy.
Yeah, and he's got little man syndrome as it is. He has to stand on a soapbox when he's on a podium and everything. And, he can act like a Barney badass all he wants. But the fact of the matter is he's a liar. And when I had the opportunity to be on the Today Show in an interview, I was interviewed by NBC when I was at Marty Rathbun's place. And they did the interview out in front of Marty's house with me. And, at the end of it, I was leaning on the hood of my Chevy Suburban talking to the reporter on camera, and he says, what do you think should happen to David Miscaviage? I said, David Miscaviage should be behind bars. Mm-hmm. They never aired the episode. They dropped it. The second part was dropped, and they only showed the first one, and they moved on. Right. And then the next day, Marty Rathbun got in my face like he was a drill sergeant when I asked him who owned the copyrights to all the lectures and the books, and said, why don't I ask intelligent questions?
Hey. Interesting. So I wanted to ask there with regard to him and others, it almost seems like, is it what it's called, a fifth columnist? Is that when somebody is working on the inside but works for the enemy? Is that the proper term for fifth columnist?
Yeah, because at the time when I was there, and I heard this with my own ears, standing in the breezeway at Marty Rathman's house. At the time, I heard Mike Rinder of the Aftermath fame. I heard Mike Rinder talking to Rathman on the phone, and Rathman was giving his marching orders to Rinder, and Rinder was, yes, sir, no, sir, right away, sir, I'll get on it, sir. I heard Rinder say this in 2010 on the phone with Marty. 2010. Spring.
Yeah.
Highly, highly suspicious. And so clearly I missed Marty's withholds on the whole thing. And I see that whole period with Marty Rathman and people wanting to go to him and everything. I had to clean up his mess on some of his pieces too, the crazy shit he was auditing on. And what happens is the church sends out these guys to basically become another fly paper. They'll see how many flies they can attract, and then they'll spin them in, and then they become disaffected and they fall off the lines completely and don't want to have anything to do with the subject ever again. They're out. In other words, they're not just out of the church, they're out of the church and out of the subject altogether.
That's what my opinion is, that they're trying to do, to credit the tech entirely. And that's, I tend to think that the, all these TV shows, the Leah Remini stuff, and any of the films and shows that have come out that are anti-Scientology, something to me looks like it has the same hands on it that is there within the church, as if those are the people within the church, the chairman or the board of directors there are the people actually funding these TV shows.
It wouldn't surprise me, because it's, I mean, you know, and it's, I think also there's no such thing as bad press.
Right. That's
type
true.
of thing. You're going to get people that are curious, but it's just that they keep disaffecting and keep disaffecting and keep disaffecting and disaffecting. And now it's become basically a real estate acquisition firm that poses as a religious philosophy. And that's it, because he knows the time is coming that, you know, he needs to have real assets, tangible assets. So what they do is they get a bunch of suckers, people that are in the church, to pay for these pieces of property, these ideal orgs, which is a complete spin on the data series policy letter called an ideal org, by the way. The irony is just incredible, what it says and what they've spun it into. Mm-hmm. So they get these whales, these people that have a lot of money and are very productive, to pay for these buildings, Miscavige doesn't shell out money on it. He gets other people to do it for him. Then he gets the organization, the local organization, to then, it just blows me away every time I say this. They then pay rent to the corporate Church of Scientology for the building that was paid for by donation. And they own the deed to the building. And, wait for it, and in a lot of cases, they've rented out parts of the building to other businesses.
Right.
Not in all cases, but in some, these bigger buildings. Yeah. Talk about an unbelievable scam to get people, good people, to pay for a building that is then rented. You see, the whole idea would be, if the church owns it, wouldn't it be safe to say to take that burden of the building off of the local churches? I mean, they're all mausoleums anyway. There's nobody in them. But to take that burden off of them so that they don't have to worry about the overhead, except, you know, electricity, insurance, that sort of a thing, because they can barely pay for these things.
Yeah.
Instead, they're charging them rent to be in these buildings with all this gold filigree and all this stuff, because they're just implant stations.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to. More flypaper and more flypaper. LRH never, ever, ever wanted something like this. He wanted a place that was functional, was clean. People judge us by our mess, but it doesn't have to be this crazy ass, upscale bullshit to get people to do things, because that's not what Scientology is about. They've turned Scientology into he who has the most toys wins.
Really?
What's the guy that does the YouTube videos? That one that's making all kinds of money and everything recently. I can't think of his name.
We'll edit this part.
Yeah, I can't think of his name. Anyway, this guy's, it's all become about what Scientology can do to help you make money.
Yeah.
And that's not what Scientology is about. But see, this is what they've spun it into, is it's pushing people back into the physical universe, into the objectivity, not into theta or what we are as spirits and everything. It's about he who has the most toys wins. I mean, and they flat out ask you up front for your credit card numbers day one.
Yeah.
MasterCard will not do business with the Church of Scientology anymore because of all the crazy ass bullshit that they've tried to pull with people, and the refunds that people have got on it. They've completely written them off. The church can't use a MasterCard unless they're using it through some front company, which is probably what they do. But this, it's coming from a lot of different directions. The tech works. That's not the problem. The thing is they changed the tech because it does work, and they've turned it into something completely different. This is what's happened to the corporate Church of Scientology. And I could go on and on about other changes that they've made to the tech. But the thing is it's just become something completely different than what it was even when I was still in the church 20 years ago. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and it also seems too like they, whoever we want to consider them to be, the controllers, the powers that be here on the planet in this sector, they want to do everything that they can to take people like us who are actually doing Scientology and do whatever they can to suppress us. It really does seem like that. Anybody who seems to come on lines and actually start making waves in the independent field seems to always get compromised somehow. And I know we've all
seems that way.
Yeah, and we've seen the people who've come along and tried to claim to be the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard and shit like that goes down, and it's like, what is going on there? We've talked about like mind control and things before, and that might be a little too conspiracy theory for some people, but I think there are enough listeners out there who might find that part of it interesting, where it does seem like there's some mind control that goes on, some implanting.
Yeah. Well, you look at the big technical building down there that they took over a decade to make. They made more money with that building than they did with any of their services and stuff in that period, because they got all kinds of donations. And in that place, it's like a morgue as well. I've driven by it. When I was at Flag in the late 80s, the sidewalks were covered with people back and forth. It just looked like an anthill. And then you drive through down there now, there's cameras everywhere, one or two people walking in and out of the building or something like that, because they've altered the tech so much and they've charged so much and they've alienated such a wide swath of their public. Nobody wants to have anything to do with them. And the people that are in that building, if you do superpower, well, you flat out are doing an implant.
Yeah.
And not to mention what the changes that they've made to the knots band, the upper OT levels and things like that, where they're actually having people mock up more reactive mind in case and spinning them through and recycling the people and saying, nope, you're not clear. You need to redo your whole bridge again, because they're running out of turnips to get blood from.
Right.
It's stunning. Not to mention what you're talking about, is sending people out into the field to just spin people in and make them give up. because it just seems like it's a worthless cause. I mean, and this last one with what was his name?
Oh, the imposter?
2.0.
Yeah.
And what was stunning to me is how many highly trained auditors he duped. I literally had my mouth agape.
Me too.
What the fuck is going on with these people?
Yeah.
How in the world could you ever believe a guy that has a pair of tits on his forehead as a tattoo? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Are you kidding me that this guy is L. Ron Hubbard reincarnated and you actually believe it? This is the sort of thing that's caused the church to go down the tubes, is that...
And to discredit Scientology. If you get people, I think the agenda was to go, oh, this is what the free zoners, I'm doing air quotes, think is L. Ron Hubbard now. I really think it was a psyop to anybody who might be interested in the independent field to go, look, these people think this is LRH 2.0, this guy that's got a Fourth Reich tattoo on his hand and in prison more than he's been out of prison in his life. He's about my he's in his late 30s, I'm pretty sure, a little bit younger than me. And I can attest to what was going on at that point in time when he made that that decision to become that. I remember seeing him go through the OT levels very quickly. And
that's right. You were there for that, weren't you?
I was there again. That was years ago. Yeah, I saw the whole thing go down. And it was very strange. He and I took a road trip together down to Southern California, and I was expecting to have like a really great time with this guy. It's a Scientology friend. We had just finished doing the TRs and objectives together, and I was all blown out from doing that. And we went down to Southern California. He barely said a word the whole trip. It was the most awkward drive from Washington State down to drop them off family down, and there's like Huntington Beach or something, and that was a long drive, 2 days straight of driving with a stop in the middle. So anyway, there was a lot of strangeness going on there, and with the people that showed up at that place too, there was it seemed like, in my opinion, it looked like we had just had a few agent provocateurs show up there, from whomever, whether they're from the church or from the powers that be. There was a couple of agent provocateurs there, and what I would consider a dirty bomb of entity stuff occurred there. We had one guy show up and was starting to use the meter as a Ouija board. I'm not joking. We were doing meter drills, and this guy is from another country, and he sat there and was doing something like trying to talk to other beings that were in the room and getting reads on the meter while we're supposed to be doing the fucking e-meter drills in the course room. So that, to me, and a number of other strange things that guy said, as well as strange things that JC was saying, Justin Craig was saying, and some of the other people that came around. There was 2 PCs that showed up that were kind of like dirty hippies, quote unquote, from Portland, who looked more like actors with the mock-up of being dirty hippies. Like they had the clothes, they had the hair, they had the dog and the Subaru, but they weren't dirty enough. They looked like it was thrift store clothing thrown on uptone people pretending to be downtone people. And one of them, I finish up the guy's grade 1, and the auditing was perfect. It was perfect, like perfect comm cycle. I felt like I was in like a practice session doing a drill with somebody who really knew what they were doing. And I'm like, who is this guy actually? Your reads were
seemed a little too good.
Oh, way too good. I mean, I was really green, but this was just like way too easy for someone who's allegedly a, dirty hippie from Portland with his dog and his girlfriend living in the car, and they didn't smell, their eyes were bright. Their posture was good, but they looked like they were on a movie set. So in my opinion, again, I think those were agent provocateurs there to do something. And there's another person who was there that I'm pretty sure was a agent provocateur from the church. Or no, I should say a sleeper. He was a sleeper there. He was actually my auditor. And when my dad had showed up there at that group shortly after I had left, and he and another fellow that were there went and looked in the guy's storage unit to clear it out. I don't know if he dropped his body or for whatever reason they needed to clear out this guy's storage facility there in town. And when they went to go clear this guy's storage unit out, they found all these certs with all the gold leaf and everything from Flag with like new OT7 completion, you know, class whatever it was, like a class 7 or class 8, you know, all these high level certificates, both auditor and both as an auditor and both with his case, just as, you know. And this guy, when he was there with us, was allegedly doing his level 4 internship and was stalling on the level 4 check sheet. Just got really lightheaded talking about this. And so he sat there and was a sleeper in that group. And then when things got really weird, he up and left. I think they kicked him out. But something got real strange right about the time when JC was becoming 2.0, and the Turkish guy showed up with the dirty entity bomb.
And it just sounded like a conflagration of all of these people. Yeah, it's a little too much.
I had a lot, you know, weird shit going on with my life then, and my body aged terribly there in that little bit of time. It was the strangest thing. I put on a lot of weight, and just within the course of not even 4 weeks, my body looked like it aged a decade.
Yeah, I remember seeing stuff on Facebook, and then, you know, a little time went by, and then I saw you again on Facebook, and I was like, damn. you know, this guy has changed.
Yeah, you and I connected about that same time frame on Facebook, and then it was after that. I didn't trust anything because I'm like, well, the church is compromised, and now the independent field is compromised. So
it's compromised,
you and Mikhail Fedorov with the theta meter, everybody, the people that owned that place, that we were, everybody. I just unfriended all of them. I was like, nope, I need to get the fuck out of here. This is not safe. And I put some distance between myself and the tech for several years, before I reached out to you in November of last year. So that to me was very strange when JC decided to become LRH 2.0. It seemed like it was something that was not, it was obviously a shotgun to him. It was obviously like the idea was given to him. It wasn't something that he originated. You know, he'd said a few weird things to me about that, and he tried to say that I was red sharp with what, and I'm like, okay, that's some evaluation, man, but okay.
Right.
You're telling me the story about how Red Sharp got up and left. I'm like, I know, you can find that on Wikipedia. You know, trying to tell me like there's a firsthand story. Yeah.
Right. Well, and you know, this is a prime example of how bad things can get. I mean, you know, the crazy stories that people run into. This is the type of thing that took Scientology out, is these ops and all this stuff where they plant people in there to cause problems, and you know, from both sides, from the top down and from the bottom up. It's really, really a shame. But the moral of the story is that the tech works.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing to remember, is that why in the world would so many people try so hard to destroy something unless there was some actual validity to it? I think that's the moral of the story. And, you know, try it out for yourself. Give it a whirl. If it works for you and it's true for you, it's true for you. And, you know, it takes persistence to go the distance. But, man, you know, LRH really put a wonderful thing there for everybody and for us, and we need to make use of it. Scientology is not dead. The subject of Scientology is not dead. And if you're in the church and you're listening to this podcast, we can help. We can help you with whatever you've experienced, help you fix it. We've got ethics repair lists. We've got, you know, any kind of auditing. We can help you with ethics. You might have been given wrong indications in ethics, just maybe. You know, that's a whole other subject where ethics is used as a make wrong and a way to force people to bend the knee, basically. We hear that all the time. But anyway, that's the thing, is the subject works, and don't be afraid of it because of what's happened in the church. Take it elsewhere, give us a try, and I want to say this just because it's funny, but if you don't get help with us, get help somewhere.
And also the church whom are listening, who are earnestly listening to this, and not just our friends there in the OSA who monitor our shit. But any of you,
hi guys.
Yeah, hey, I hope you're enjoying your cup of coffee. No, but to all of you earnestly whom are in the church and who have thought about or who are thinking about leaving, it's also a really great third dynamic we have here with this group.
A lot of great people.
A lot of great people. And I know that you guys have a difficulty there finding other people you can relate to. So we've got a good group here. I think, we'd be glad to see you. Any of you.
Yeah. And we are a kinder, gentler Scientology.
Right.
And we don't evaluate for you. No heavy ethics. We just want to help you get up the bridge and go free as a being and help as many people do that as we can. And if it ain't fun, it ain't Scientology. And that's how we play this game. So we're going to wrap it up here, Jason. I've really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. Tomorrow we have another one. And then the day after that, we have 3 podcasts again this week. We don't know what they're going to be just yet. We got some ideas, but we'll see you guys tomorrow. So thanks for listening, folks. And for Jason, Robba, and I, Jason.
Thank you, everyone. And, we look forward to talking to you guys again soon.
And I'm Jonathan Burke. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.